אני אצטרף עוד 2 דקות.
Okay, אני אעשה את זה באנגלית, זה לא מפריע. Okay. Okay, so now, again, we're holding now, again, until now, the last few weeks we've discussed, the Ramchal's explaining what to mean hashkocha ishis. There's a personal hashkocha which HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes on Bnei Yisrael above and beyond the rest of the Bria. So until now, he's been explaining to us that the only way to say it is it's a complicated issue to deal with schar noinish, to work out the schar noinish of every individual, because it's dependent upon a number of details, let's call it personal details of the person. So till now we were talking about the working out of schar and oinish. That means we know the amount of mitzvahs he's done, the amount of averis he's done, but it's not a perfect cheshbon that the V's get schar and the X's get oinish. The schar and the oinish is dependent upon a number of different factors. That was the first issue that the Ramchal discussed. What's the complication? What's the special hashkocha that's needed on Bnei Yisrael? That was schar and oinish. Now we've got another aspect. That's chelik beis per gimel. He calls it b'hashkocha ishis. The way to give a little précis for what this parak is. You know what? Let's go back. If you look in chelik, the last parak, sikum ois tes, of the last parak, he says like this: Ulam. All the things we've mentioned till now. Hine nisboer inyan yisurei hatzadikim bo'ilam hazeh v'shalvas. 1 second. Yeah. Ine yisurei hatzadikim bo'ilam hazeh v'shalvas harashoim v'chein ha'onoshim hanafshiyim. One example he said was that Kadosh Baruch Hu sometimes wants to give the schar to a Rosha in the Olam Hazeh, and to give the Oynish to the Tzaddik, to Olam Hazeh, to leave the Tzaddik with all his schuyot L'Olam Habo, and to get the Rosha that he's got nothing left for Olam Habo. That's an example. I've described to you now the Yisurim of Tzaddikim and what looks like the happiness of the Rishonim in Olam Hazeh as far as concerns the schar and oinish. If so, you're going to have a very big problem. What's the problem? If it's true to say that Kadosh Baruch Hu wants to keep all the schar for a tzaddik, for Olam Habo, and and he gives the Rosha the schar in Olam Hazeh, so that means any person who would have shalvas hanefesh in this world, anybody who would have, according to that cheshbon should come out, anyone who has in this world, let's call it some sort of if he has shalvas hanefesh, or let's say even wealth in this world, so you situated, oh well, that guy's a Rosha. And it's only the poor people who are the tzaddikim, because otherwise, why should the tzaddik get in this world any form of easy life? Says the Ramchal, when you find a tzaddik who has it good in this world, I'm going to have to explain to you that issue. That issue I've not explained to you yet. I've explained to you why a Rosh should get his schar in this world and why a tzaddik should get his schar next world. But why a tzaddik should have it easy in this world, I've not yet explained to you. And I'm going to explain to you Mr. Shem in this parak. Okay, that's enough. Now we come to this parak. So in this parak, he's going to speak another aspect of how Rebbeinu Shalom determines what sort of life you should have in Olam Hazeh, which is not based on schar and oinish. Now he's going to explain it. Hine, kvar higdamnu, that now we're talking about chelik beis per gimel. Kvar higdamnu she'inyan ha'avoda shenimsar la'odom tolui b'ma shenivra ba'olam inyonei tov v'inyonei ra. In this world, we've already discussed it beforehand, that this world has been created with chosa. The Ramchal calls it in all its forum, he calls it, this world's called chosa. The greatest expression of the chesaron in this world is hesteponim. We don't see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's the simplest form of the chesaron that you find in this world, is the hesteponim itself. But Ra and Toiv, the Ra and Toiv which exists in this world, it doesn't just show itself in the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't reveal himself, and sometimes he does reveal himself. In every aspect of the world, in every aspect, in every single thing, it's like there's a DNA. The best way to explain it in English, Baruch Hashem, Moshe, אתה מבין אותי טוב באנגלית? The DNA of this world is a DNA which is ze lu'uma ze oso Elokim. It's a DNA of a mixture of Ra and Toiv, and that got much worse when Adam Rishon ate from the Eitz Hadas. When they ate from the Eitz Hadas, the world got much more. There is nothing in this world after the Chet of the Eitz Hadas which doesn't have Ra and Toiv. That means we see it in Hesteponim, we see it in its most extreme form. But in every detail of this world, there's the same chisoron, the same mixture of Ra and Toiv. And where it shows itself also in human beings. In human beings, there's Ra and Toiv, meaning there's the Yetzer Toiv and the Yetzer Ra. There's Midas Toivos and Midas Rois. All these things are a totzah. They're an outcome of the HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with a chisoron of hesteponim. That means there's lacking in this world, and there's Ra. And the Ra exists in different forms, but it exists within ourselves also. Now, even though you have to understand this, even though the Taryag mitzvahs, in the Taryag mitzvahs itself, there's nowhere said midas rois or midas toivos. Nowhere in the Torah is there anywhere where there's any essay or lois essay of midas rois or midas toivos. The Torah talks about Taryag mitzvahs essay. There's mitzvahs essay you have to do, and there's mitzvah, and there's a lois essay sul meira ve'asei toiv, which means HaKadosh Baruch Hu says keep Shabbos and don't do a malacha. That's the essay, and that's the lois essay. That's what the Torah talks about. But since we know that the world is made of Ra and Toiv, and our job in this world is to rectify the Ra in all its forms. It's a tikkun, to be mataken the chisoron in all its forms. Therefore, beyond just the doing the mitzvahs and the averis, there's also the Ra and Toiv within me. That means the midos toivos and the midos rois within me. That's the Ra and Toiv, and that is also a chiyuv of mine to be metaken. It doesn't. The Reb Chaim Vital writes in Shari Kedusha that it doesn't even have to be written. It's the basics. Why? Because anyone who understands what we're doing in this world, our tafkid is to be metaken, the chisoron in the world. So the Taryag mitzvahs, the Sumera and the Asay Toiv, is guidelines that the Torah is telling us through these actions you'll be either mesakin the Ra, or you'll be chas v'sholem mesakin the Ra, or chas v'sholem be ma'ale the Ra. But the basic, which doesn't need to be written, is the bad within me and the good within me I have to deal with also. That means the Taryag mitzvahs is just to tell us what we wouldn't know ourselves. But the etzem midas, that's poshet. That's the tikkun ha'odom. The Chaim Vital writes, without that, so if you have a rotten person who's doing mitzvahs, that's not going to create any dveikus HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's basic. Says the Ramchal, הנה כבר הקדמנו שעניין העבודה שנמצא לאדם תלוי במה שנברא בעולם ענייני טוב וענייני רע. והוא שם האדם ביניהם, man is put in this world between good and evil. Livchoi loy es atoif. Vulam prote inyone atoif. Rabbi meim. V'chein prote inyone hara. Ki haloi, now listen to this language. Kol midot toivo michlal hatoif. V'hefech ze kol midot ro. Now, listen to the language here. There's the midot toivo, and there's the hefech leze, the opposite of it, which is the midot ro. Derech moshel. Hagaiva. Echod minyone hara. Ho anovo minyone hatoif. Ho rachmonus minyone hatoif. V'hofcho, the opposite of it. Achzoris is the ra. Histapkus v'simcha bechelkoi. Being mistapik b'muat and happy in your part, minyone hatoif. V'hofcho minyone hara. V'chein kol prote mides. The Ramchal in his beautiful language here is revealing to us the Bremiza, one of the greatest, I believe it's what I would call the self-help of Teras HaKabbalah. Why do I mean that? I remember I saw it 10 years ago, in more than that, 20 years ago, in Shlomo Wolbe. Shlomo Wolbe says, he who doesn't know this should never become a teacher. He who doesn't know this should never try to be mechanech. He says like this. He brings Reb Chaim Vital. Reb Chaim Vital was the Talmud Muvik of the Arizal, and besides writing the drushim of the Arizal, which he wrote in the Eitz Chaim, and in a lot of different chiburim, he wrote the drushes of the Arizal. He wrote the Sefer Musa. Sefer Musa he wrote was called Shari Kedusha. Shari Kedusha is not a Sefer Kabbalah, it's a Sefer Musa. But it's a Sefer Musa built on the Yesodis, the Kabbalistic Yesodis. And so there he explains, and I'm going to explain to this because this is what the Ramchal is talking about here. He says like this. He says, as we said before, after the Adam and Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, everything became a mixture of good and bad. She says, now we know there's in science a DNA. DNA meaning if you break down the cells of the body, you'll see that there's a basic element, a basic, I don't know how you call it, the basic DNA which the body is made of. She says like this, there's 4 yesodos from which HaKadosh Baruch Hu built the world. The 4 yesodos are Eish, Ruach, Mayim, and Ofa. These are the 4 yesodos. The 4 yesodos, by the way, in Kabbalistic, they're against the Yud Kei Vov Kei. You'll see in Kabbalah, 4 plays an enormous there's an enormous chashivas to number 4. There's 4 oilamos. It starts really from the Yud Kei Vov Kei. The Yud Kei Vov Kei are the 4 oisios of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then you have the 4 oilamos. There's Olam Asiyah, Olam Yitzira, Olam Bria, Olam Atzilus. And there's the 4 elements. These 4 elements are the basic DNA of every single thing which is created. That means anything which has mamoshes to it, any mass. If you break down mass, yes, so Einstein said M equals, no? Mass according to, that's right.
Squared.
NC squared. That means according to Einstein, mass is energy. It's just energy which takes the form of mass. That's the way Einstein saw it. In Kabbalah, mass is made up of 4 elements. Now these 4 elements have got in them, each of these elements has a specific tchuna. It has a specific, how do you say tchuna in English? Ariel, tchuna in English, characteristic. Each of these elements has a specific characteristic. These characteristics are characteristics of good. But when Adam Arishan, after HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, that everything should have there's Ra in the world. Then came Adam Arishan and made the Chet of Adam Arishan. And now every single thing which is created has within it ze lu'umat ze. Ze lu'umat ze means literally, it's as if there's a duology in the world. The world's made up, it's like a mirror. The mirror is Ruchnius, Toiv, and Ra. And everything which exists in this world, which of the Toiv, has within it, and the opposite of it, the Ra. And so also these four elements within them have in them Ra and Toiv. Now I'm going to show you, because you have to read it inside. 1 second. 1 second, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. I came back just now, so I didn't have time to open it. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. 1 second. No. It's not opening. I don't know why. Oh. Okay. Sorry, my apologies. I'm really not. 1 second. Share screen. Here we are. Okay. Oh, you can't see. Can you see it? No. Let me try again. 1 minute. My apologies. It'll be worth your while. Believe you me, with a little bit of savlanut, it's worth your while. Okay. Says the Chaim Vital. Says the Chaim Vital. Yeah, you can see it. Now says the Chaim Vital like this. One second. Okay. Yisoido Eish. Mimenu nimsheches hagaivo. Yisoido Eish has got the now. Yisoido Eish is be'etzem. There's a in every one of these Yisoidos elements, there's a midah toiva and a midah ra. The midah toiva, let's say, of Eish, what is Eish rises? Eish rises, so let's say hanhoge, the koyach of hanhoge, of leadership. The koyach of hanhoge comes from Yisoid Eish. What's the opposite of that? Yisoid Eish memenu nimsheches hagaivo. Hanikas gases haruach. Lios hasoid hakal v'gavoy mikulam. Ubechlol ha'makas. Ki mifnei hagava miskayis ha'odom k'sheino yitzim etzoinoi. V'lo haya shval ruach u'makech hasoines lo haya miskayis klal. He's a kabden. Without that, he's all these things. He wants a stella. Kilule hagava lo yamak bebeliboy. Ubakoshes hashrora v'hakoved lizgoyes al abriois v'asina luzolosoi. That's from Yisoid of Eish. Yisoid HaRuach. What's the Yisoid HaRuach? Yisoid HaRuach is the Yisoid the Yisoid HaRuach is anything which has got to do with Dibo. The Midas Toives, to give Shvach, to be Mishaber somebody. You know what is called Ruach? Ruach is any form or anything which is not tangible, like words. Words are not tangible. So the midah toiva is he knows how to use his dibur letoiva, not only learning Torah, to be mishabeach people, to know how to make people feel good. What's the tzad hara of it? Mimenu nimshach dibur anikra sicho b'teilo, lidvarim shein behem tzorech klal. Oy nafshi gufoni v'toil desem abo choynef shkorim loshen hora legali shvochov lebrius. Yisoid hamayim. What's mayim? Mayim is chesed. Mayim has no gvul. Mayim, if mayim you let it flow on the water, it'll just carry on flowing, and it won't stop, and it won't take any specific shape. In order for mayim to take a shape, it has to be within a kli. Mayim represents chesed, person who does chesed with no gvulot. The yisoid of mayim is the lack of gvul, not having any limitations. The mile of it is what? The mile of it is bal chesed. The chisoron of it, yisoid hamayim, mimeno tavas tanugim. When a person wants, he wants and wants more. When a person is a bal taiva, you can never quench the taiva. He always wants more. Yesh lo imona roitze mosayim, because taiva has no gvul. Kichein hamayim atzmichim kol minei tanugim v'tol desem shtayim hachemdo digzel momin v'ishtoi v'chol asheloi. That's Yisod hamayim. Next one. Yes. Yisod ha'ofa. Yisod ha'ofa is the onof. Ofa is shval ruach. He's an onof. The maila of Yisod ha'ofa is that he's an onof. What's the chisoron? Yisod ha'ofa menu midas ha'atzvos b'chol protov. The chisoron of Yisod ha'ofa is it leads to depression. It can be a person who's atzvos. Toidosachas v'asos l'kaim atayro mifnei itzboinoi oy elisum aboim ve'eino someach bechelkoi b'shum dover gam eino lo tizba oisha. Says Reb Shlomo Wolbe. Shlomo Wolbe says like this. Says Reb Shlomo Wolbe. Every human being is made up of all these, a cocktail of all the Daled Yesodis. He's made up of a cocktail of all of them. It's all written in Reb Chaim Vital, but I'm not going to show it to you. He's made up of a cocktail. But each person has one specific midah, which that is his chief tchuna, his chief characteristics. That means, let's say, everyone's made, you can have one person who's just soid ha'ish, more than all the others. Another person who's just Yisod ha'ofa. Another person is Yisod hamayim. Another person who's v'chule v'chule. Now, says the Chaim Vital, each of these midos, because the irbuv of Ra and Toiv is in every single part of anything that exists, so also in the four basic elements, there's an irbuv of Ra and Toiv which have to coexist. Let me understand. Let me explain to you what I mean. It's not a choice. In the same way that if somebody has blue eyes, somebody has Yesod ha'esh. Now, if he's, let's say, Yesod ha'esh, take an example, one thing which I could never understand. It really bothered me that you see Rosh Yeshivas who are phenomenally, really Choshev Yidden, and when it comes to Chasana, they run to dance in the middle, and to everyone dance around them and singing Yamim Al Yemei Melech Toiziv. And you see them literally running to the middle. It's like they have this desperate urge for covet. Desperate urge for covet. And I must tell you the truth, for me, it literally pulled me down. What do I mean? I looked at them and think, but am I more than them? I mean, look at these guys. They're meant to be more than me, and they're making themselves stupid dancing in the middle, or they make all these stupid little dances, and everyone claps, all the bochum clap around them, and everyone smiles. I'm thinking, my gosh, I mean, this guy's meant to be something special, and I could never understand it. But once I learned this, when I saw this Revolba, and I learned from Chaim Vital, I understood it perfectly. This man has true leadership abilities. He is Midas Eish. That's his chief characteristic, is Midas Eish. Now, Midas Eish means when let's say you're born with Midas Eish, you're born with the good and the bad of it. Because everything in this world has within it, it has to be Zel Umazeh. The good and the bad coexist. Now, therefore, I haven't got the nisoyin that he's got of covet. Do you know why? Because I don't have his miler that he's got leadership abilities. That means he who has leadership abilities, that means the midas ha'esh is so strong in him. So Nebuch, the same person, has a terrible nisoyan with kovod, which I don't have. So literally, his biggest miler brings about a horrific nisoyan, something I would never have. You have somebody else. And I've given another example. I know somebody who's the most enormous Baal Chesed. Enormous Baal Chesed. I'm talking about Baal Chesed, not in, he doesn't, I'm not saying he hasn't got money, but he's forever being, trying to help out people in a way which is beyond almost anyone I've seen before. The same special, unique man. And I've known him for 40 years, 35 years. The same man is such a spendthrift, it's not to be believed. He's such a spendthrift. You can walk with him into a shop, it's unbelievable what he'll buy. And I kept on thinking, how could such a special person do such things? The teretz is, when your main characteristic is Yesoid Hamayim, and that means that you have no gvulot, you have absolutely, you cannot be controlled. Your chesed is uncontrollable. It's like water, which pours and pours with no gvulot. The same lack of gvul, the lack of limitations, will give you an isoyan, being a spendthrift in a way that is unbelievable. Says Rav Wolbe, once you understand this klal, that midos toivos and midos rois are not just something which happen. That means it's very defined. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made midos toivos and midos rois, and it's basically one characteristic. Each characteristic has its upside and its downside. Each one. That means you can literally see somebody who's an onov. You'll know, an onov, a real onov. A real onov. You will know that's midas ha'ofa, and you will know that he has a problem with depression. Why? Because it comes hand in hand. The nisoyan, the midas ra, the midah ra and the midah toiva are the two sides of the same coin. Says Rav Wolbe, the job of any mechanech, he says more than that. He says the job of any person, but especially a mechanech, is to be able to see each person separately and understand who he is. That means if I know this person, if I know that this person is Yesod Ha'esh, he's got leadership abilities, then I know that he has an Isoyin with COVID. If I know he's got Yesod Mayim, I know he has a problem with putting down limitations. If I know he's Yesod HaRuach, then I know that he will also have the Nisoyin of not being able to control his mouth. He'll be blabbering and won't stop blabbering. And each midday says, are the job of every mechanech, says Rav Wolbe, and the job really of any person is to understand his own makeup, not only to know his cocktail, but to know which midday is the midday, which is the primary midday of his. And then he'll know how to deal with himself. But Ra and Toiv in this world exist in everything, and the middos are not just haphazard. Each midah toiva which you have means you also have that midah ra. And your nisoyan in life is to work with your specific midah ra. If you're 60% Aish and 20% Mayim, then you will have that specific nisyonis which come with your milas. In exactly the same when you see a character, normally character traits have within them, innately within them, they have the good part and the bad part. So is the midas. Now I want you to reread the Ramchal. Says the Ramchal, Ki aloi kol midot toivo michlal hatoiv. let's start from the beginning again. K'vay kedamnu she'ini in ha'avoda shenimsel adam toli b'ma shenivru ba'olam inyonei tov v'inyonei ra. V'husam ha'adam b'neim, God, man was placed in between good and bad, livcha b'os ha'tov. V'ulam prote inyonei ha'tov rabim heim, v'chein prote inyonei ra. The details of the good and bad in this world and the good and bad in every individual are enormously intricate. Derech moshel, hagaiva echad minyonei hara, v'hanova minyonei hatoiv, harachmonus minyonei hatoiv, v'hofcha hazoris, haistapkus v'asimcha bechelke minyonei hatoiv, v'hofcha minyonei hara. Everything has its own opposite. It's not haphazard. Everything is there with a seder. I'm not saying the seder of the Ramchal is the same seder as we learned previously in the Chaim Vital, but it's not haphazard. You don't just wake up and have this mila and this chisaron. Your mila brings about its own nisyonis. Your midas toivos, your great characteristics, they bring about your avodah ra. V'hinei, shiro ha'chochma elyono. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Messiah. He literally calculated. Kol protei ha'inyonim mizeh hamin shruim limotzei v'lipoil efsharusam b'choykei noishis. That means HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Ra in this world exactly in the right amount that's needed for us to be metake. Nothing exists in this world without a purpose, and the purposes are avodah. Everything was created to be mative with us, that we should be able to misake. So all the Ra that exists in this world, including the midos rois within us, is there for us to rectify. Okay? לפי התכלס העיקרי שזכרנו במקיימה. והמציאו מויסם בכל בחינותיהם, סיבותיהם ומסיבותיהם וכל המסלבביהם. He created the midas themselves, the situation where they can come about, and all the details surrounding the midas and surrounding your way in which you use them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mechashben, made perfectly. That means there is no situation that happens to us. There's no moment that happens to us where we don't have a nisoyen in koved, in nisoyen in gaiva, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't create that situation for that nisoyen to be mesak in that moment. Va'omnom, in order that all the different forms of chisoron should exist in this world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu needed to create different situations for the people. שכולם יהיו ניסויים להם במה שייתנו מוקים לכל פרוטי בחינס הרע האלה. Each person has his own midas, has his own nisyonos, and has his own situations which HaKadosh Baruch Hu created for him to rectify his own chisroinus. No two people are the same. No two people's midas are the same. No two people's midas rois are the same. And no two people's situations are the same. Each one is tailor-fitted for this person with his specific chisroinus, which he has to be masaken. Derech moshel, says the Ramchal. Im lo hayu ashirim vaniyim. If there was no rich people and poor people in the world, that means, an example, God created, there was Yesod HaMayim. Yesod HaMayim means that there are people in this world who their tafkid, they have a specifically which is called the ability to be generous. That's Mayim. Mayim means an ability to give without gvulot. What does that mean? I mean, as a schnorrer, I can tell you, as a schnorrer, I can tell you, it's not enough to find a rich man. You have to find a rich man who likes giving away his money. That is very rare. It's not enough to find somebody who likes giving away money, because you have to find somebody who has the money to give away. Those two things are the rarity. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Midas Hamayim. He gave a specific person a midah, which is the midah of being able to give to others. Literally, Mayim means, I once saw one of the Chasidic Forum, he writes that each Odom is built one unit. He's built with his own body. Mayim doesn't just mean that I give my money to somebody. Mayim means, what's the midah of chesed? The ability to expand yourself, to hold within you others. You break your own mechitzas. Your mechitzas of being an individual, the midah of Mayim is to be able to break all form of mechitzas, all form of gvul. A person is built one, but when he expands, when he literally flows like water, he can suddenly hold within him others. He expands to be able to hold within him others. But for such a person, if there wouldn't be money in the world, he wouldn't have a way of being able to be mekayim, the midah of mayim or chesed. And in the same way, if there wouldn't be poor people, he wouldn't have who to give it to. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to create in the world a certain individual who's got that means if there was a midah of chesed which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to be masakin in this world. So he created a person who his special tafkid is chesed. But in order for him to give him this tafkid, he had to do two things. He wasn't enough that he wants to give. He had to give him money to give him the ability to give. And he had to create a niyim to be able to create the environment for him to be able to give to. So if there wouldn't be a niyim and a shirim, if there wouldn't be money, there wouldn't be an ability to be mekayim the chesed. Says the Ramchal, Im lo hoyu ashirim avanim, lo hoyu mokim she'odam merachim v'lo yachzori. Ach ato hine yenusa. Now what happens? One man was created rich and the other poor. Why? It's not because the rich man got his schar in this world. No. There's another issue here. Schar anoinish, HaKadosh Baruch Hu prefers to leave the schar for Ilam Haba. If you see somebody with money in this world, there's two people who have money. There's either it's a Rosha who did one little mitzvah, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what, I'll give him all his schar in this world. I'll give him wealth. But there's another guy who's got money. Who's that? A person HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted that his tafkid should be the midah of mayim, the midah of chesed, in order for him to have his nesoyin. What's his nesoyin? His nesoyin is what? To use what he was given for the tachlis that he was given it. Now, what about the oni? The oni's nesoyin was what? To live a life of anius and to nevertheless be happy. That means each person's situation is not just determined by schar noinish. It's determined by tafkid. It's determined by what midah HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to be masakin. So says the Ramchal, Im lo hoyu ashirim v'anim lo hoyu mokim l'shia odom merachim v'lo yachzori. Ach ato hine yenusa ha'osher ba'oshroi. The nisoyin of the osher is his wealth. His wealth is not schar. His wealth is his tafkid. His wealth is his situation that Kodesh Baruch Hu put him in to be metaken those midos. Will he, when the guy comes to knock on the door, will he say, "Get lost, you smelly fellow"? Then what was he doing now? He did the worst Avera. Do you know why? It wasn't just an Avera that he wasn't Merachim. This is a very important thing. It's not just that he did his Avera that he wasn't Merachim. But if his job is, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him wealth because he is Midas Hamayim and Midas Rachmanis, if he, Chas v'Sholem, throws the guy away b'bizyonos, he's been moyel betafkid. He has rejected and abused everything that he's here in this world for. That means it's a phenomenal idea. The Taryag mitzvahs, everyone has. But everyone has a tikkun which is individual for himself. A tikkun on midas which is individual for himself. The oni, Kodesh Baruch Hu made him an oni. It wasn't a punishment. He was made an oni. Now he carries on, look what the Ramchal says. V'chein yenusa ha'oni. Im yistapek b'muet shebeyodoi v'yoyde leloikovoi lehefech. That means like this. If an oni grumbles all his life, and he's forever complaining and depressed because he don't have money, his Avera is enormous. Do you know why? Because that was his tafkid. There's an enormous, let me finish this off. Another nisoyin which Loisha will have. If he will use his money to feel better than others. That's his nisoyin. Or will spend his time buying jets. And if with all his wealth he's still an onov, and his respect is not for monetary things, it's only for it's Torah and Avodah, then that's his tafkid. That means, there's an enormous thing here. It is a life-changing Ramchal. Besides mitzvahs eseh and mitzvahs lo isaseh, there's the tchunot, the characteristics that Kodesh Baruch Hu put in you when you were born. And those are there to be koveah your tafkid. What's your tafkid in this world? If a person, this tafkid is his own personal, mission in this world. And every individual has a separate personal mission. And if chas v'sholem, anyone, whether it's an oni or it's an osher, if it's a person who knows how to speak well, and he can be a phenomenal magid, that's, by the way, ruach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him the ability to speak. And this ability to speak, to give over beautiful ideas and learning to others. The ability to be able to make people feel good. And he uses it to become a wonderful salesman. Do you know what he's done? He's abused his mission statement in life. He's abused his mission. And that is the greatest Avera. Now that's why when you see a person in this world, when he lives in a specific situation, wealth, poverty, any sort, it's not just a question of schar noinish. It's also a question of tafkid. What was this purpose in life? The Vilna Gaon writes that the Novi was called, he writes in Mishle, the Novi was called a roya. Roya. Why was he called a roya? Says the Vilna Gaon, because the part of the tafkid of the Novi was that the person who wanted to know what was his tafkid in life, he used to come in front of the Novi, and the Novi was roya masha b'soich liboy. He saw what this person's tchunas hanefesh were, and he saw what his mission was in life. And says the Goin, the Novi used to tell him, and that was the derech he took. Mi osher nisbat lo nevuah, says the Vilna Gaon. There's no one to ask, but there's still ruach. A person has a chelek elokai mimal, intuition inside him, some gut feeling inside him, which shows him what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants him in life. But says the Vilna Gaon, the hardest thing in life is to follow that path, because many times his mind tells him, God didn't want you to be poor. God wanted you to be rich. There's a lot of his personal wants which get mixed into this issue. Says
לכן
the
אומרים, לפעמים אם בן אדם הגורל שלו להיות עני, והוא מתפלל לקדוש ברוך הוא להיות עשיר, אבל הוא לא מבין שאם הוא יהיה עשיר,
בדיוק. And that is what the Maramchal is saying here. Beyond what we spoke about till now, that Kadosh Baruch Hu has to assess everything, schar and oinish, on a very individual level. There's another issue which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to take into account. HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks at every member of Klal Yisrael individually, not just for schar and oinish, but because each one has a very special tafkid. And for those reasons, he was given specific characteristics and specific midas. And one of the hardest things in life is to see what our tafkid is and what our midah is. If we could go to the Navi and ask him, what is the path that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants? If we could go to the Navi and say, am I Eish? Am I Mayim? Am I Ruach? Or am I Ofo? Then our life would be simple. But we don't have the Navi. And we have to have Davan HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be Zoicha, to find our tafkid and stand by our tafkid. And in Mitzvah Hashem, we should be Zoicha, that each one should be able to do it. Thank you very, very much. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, Zaya Baruch. Thank you very much. Okay.
Laila Tov.
Good night. Amen. Good night. How are you, Reb Chaim? How are you, Uncle Harry? You're on mute. How are you? Wait a second, I'm trying to unmute you. I can't do it. I can't hear you, I can't unmute you. You're unmutable. I don't know why. We'll see you tomorrow. Gute Nacht.